Hey, what's going on, fam? So today I want to talk about Jay-Z's actionable items that he was referring to when he stood up there with Roger Goodell looking like a slave on some inspired change BS, or not inspired change. I'm talking ahead of myself. They didn't reveal the name of their alleged program, but he was, Jay-Z was up there looking like a slave, talking talking nonsense with Roger Goodell about actionable items and how they going basically minimizing Colin Kaepernick's thing. And that's the thing. Let me sidetrack just a little bit, um, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to read an article and we're going to talk about what Jay Z's actionable items are. But before I do that, let me sidetrack a little bit because I want to just touch a quick point. When Jay Z says actionable items, you got to understand that there's a connotation that's been put out there by the white supremacists and their little um, minions, black people that are their minions, go out there and repeat, and that's that kneeling is this. They try to minimize what Colin Kaepernick did to just kneeling. Like, I'm walking down the street and I just randomly kneel, and I think that's going to solve racism. No, what Colin Kaepernick did was symbolic. And even though I bash, or not even bash, I'm against a lot of the symbolic trick bags that white supremacy put in front of black people to deceive them and to make them think that something's being done when it's not. In this case, obviously it was more than just kneeling. He was kneeling during the anthem because he was making a stand. He was just making a moral stance that this country does not represent what it claims to represent, and so he's not going to stand for the flag until it does. That's an indefinite thing. That's just a moral conviction thing. There is such thing as that. For those of you who obviously who would defend or would not defend, but who would actually attack Colin Kaepernick or try to minimize it to just this random kneeling action that does nothing. Obviously, it did something because it got him blackballed out the NFL. Because it means more than just kneeling. It's not like the dude is in Kroger and then he just randomly kneels and that's supposed to stop racism. But you let these Sambos tell it, oh, he just kneeling. We got to do more than just kneel. There are certain ways that you say things, and when you say it in a certain tone, when you say it with, you don't even have to go as deep as I did. When you just say certain things in a certain tone, in a certain sarcastic or dismissive tone, you put connotations around it to try to minimize it and try to make it seem like almost something that's negative or foolish to do, which is intentional, which is the same thing that got Colin Kaepernick blackball. Is what you want to do is you want to silence the truth that he's speaking to, because what the flag and the anthem represents is a symbolic ritual that black people go through and white people go through that pretends that the nation is something that it's not, that the flag is pretending to represent something that it's not, and we all know that. But anyway, I digress. With my little prologue, let me go ahead and get into the article, this little trick bag hoax that we all knew that it would be when he said actionable items. I'm going to read an article about it from HuffPost. Now, admittedly, HuffPost is a white liberal shill publication, but in this case, they're one of the more reliable sources of truth because obviously there's not a lot of black media outlets out there. Uh, that are real prominent or have had a chance to write any articles about this. And I'm talking about credible black media outlets, not The Root and Ebony and all these fraudulent white liberal owned black media outlets, but actual black media outlets that are owned by grassroots black people. They're so few and far between that, and a lot of them don't even write articles. They do things like YouTube videos, like I'm doing. So obviously, there's not going to be really many, if any, articles out there. So I'm going to use this HuffPost article because it's obviously better to rely on them with a story like this than Fox News or Breitbart or something. So anyway, with the article. As part of its new long-term partnership with the NFL, Jay-Z's entertainment company Roc Nation has launched an apparel line and a music project that will support programs under the league's social justice initiative called Inspire Change. But given the NFL's recent history on the issue, many people are skeptical of the move. Many high-profile commentators criticize the initiative, as hypocritical, accusing the league of blackballing Colin Kaepernick for leading peaceful protests against social justice issues by kneeling during the anthem game, the national anthem at NFL games in 2016. So let me stop right there. I mean, you guys are already seeing the game. You guys are already seeing the hustle. So all this babble about actionable items, and then when it's actually time to do the actionable item, what is it? Oh, so first of all, this plan, when they presented it, it was supposed to be them setting aside money for quote unquote social justice programs, right? Now it's a concert where people are going to have to buy the music. So it's not the NFL funding it now. Now it's the people. A lot of the times it's going to be the people who would be victims of this same, or beneficiaries of this same quote unquote initiative. Black people, right? Black fans. So they're going to buy this song and therefore fund a movement that's going to lift them out of oppression. So it's not the NFL doing it. It's the people funding themselves out of oppression. And that's Jay-Z's actionable item. We're not going to make the NFL do something, because that's what it was sold as. Oh, the NFL and Jay-Z, they're going to work together to make change in the community. No, all they're doing is being a middleman for what the people could have did themselves. If the people have to build a community program, they could have gotten together and did that themselves. They don't need you being a middleman, this person taking a cut, this person taking a cut, because just because the concert is quote allegedly free, that doesn't mean that the people who are putting on the concert are free. So all the soundstage people, whoever, the venue, all these people probably still got to get paid. Not to exclude the artists. The artists aren't putting on this concert for free. They're probably getting paid off this. That's why there has to be a middleman and a concert and T-shirts to buy. And then the people making the T-shirts, they're not donating their labor for free. The only people that's quote unquote getting anything free is the people that show up to the live concert. The people who want to buy the music that's performed at that concert after the concert, it's not free for them. The people who want to buy the T-shirts that represent this concert or reference this concert, they're not free, because guess what? Remember, all the proceeds are going to social justice initiatives. But I thought the NFL was paying for it because the NFL cares so much about social justice initiatives. All this is what we said it was at the beginning. It's a bag for Jay-Z. But anyway, I don't want to talk through the whole article, even though I am going to interject throughout the whole article. I don't want to stop that early, because there's a lot more left in the article. Or let me stop at this point, because there's a lot more left in the article. So, many high-profile comment. Oh no, I already read that part. All right. So that same year, Kaepernick's organization, Know Your Rights Camp, began hosting camps for young people and teaching communities about their legal rights in police encounters. In January 2018, the activist announced he completed his pledge of donating $1 million to organizations helping underserved communities. He has remained unsigned by an NFL team since he became an NFL free agent after the 2016 season, because he's been blackballed for the same thing that the NFL is for protesting and bringing attention to the fact that America is not representing its ideals because of this issue. That same issue that he's blackballed for, that's the same issue that the NFL now cares so much about, that they'll be the people's middleman to fund their own community programs. That's how much they care. They'll be the people's middleman, because obviously they can't do it themselves, which is racist in itself. So if you wanna legitimately claim that black people are unable to pool their own resources, unless you're saying it's because we've been so economically deprived, that's one thing. But other than that, if you have any other excuse as to why black people are unable to do this themselves, for themselves, or so-called underserved communities, then you're a racist. You're just being a racist. We know that. You're just saying that black people are too dumb, too incompetent to do it themselves. So they need the NFL and Jay-Z and these artists to be a middleman and make people buy music and T-shirts, and then they're going to donate all the money All the proceeds to quote unquote these vague ass social justice initiatives that I bet you those initiatives are administered by a bunch of white people, a bunch of people who are taking in money for themselves to do the job of training and uplifting and rebuilding, aka gentrifying the community. All these people that are getting paid, and then very little actually goes to the direct recipients. But I digress. Rock Nation said proceeds from the Inspired Change apparel line will support organizations that are focused on the league's efforts to address social justice issues such as education and economic empowerment, police and community relations, and criminal justice reform. So these are all catchphrases. Nobody knows exactly what this means, but these are vague catchphrases for the Sambos who want to latch on to this and the white supremacists to be able to defend this hoax. It's catchwords: educational and economic empowerment, aka nothing, a nothing burger trick bag. But that's what they're able to latch on to, these catchphrases that don't mean anything, but are enable people to put up a wall and say we're doing something. Well, what are you doing? Education and economic renewal, police and community relations, because that's the problem, right? Tamir Rice got killed because he didn't know how to relate to the police. Not because he was a child playing with a gun and because the white supremacists called a police death squad to come kill him. Or a race soldier death squad to come kill him. And then he gets a year in jail. When we saw black cops accidentally shoot a white child whose father had his child in the car. So it was his father who was endangering his life because he was driving his car at police, trying to kill police with his son in the car. Those officers got life in prison. But a white man pulls up on a black child with a toy gun and does not give him any chance to drop the gun or anything, and he sees less than a year in prison. But we need to relate to the police. That's what it is. These vague catchphrases, police and community relations. What that does is that fools uneducated and frankly dumb black people into saying, "Oh, they're gonna stop police brutality by making us relate better." And criminal justice reform. Again, catchphrases that don't mean anything. You say this because it's supposed to mean something, but it doesn't mean a damn thing. Because if it meant something, all the other times you guys attach these catchphrases to your little programs, it would have done something by now. We wouldn't still be in this situation to keep needing these programs if your vague ass programs would have did something. It's just vague ass nothing burgers. People do not, my family who has any kind of sense and intelligence, do not fall for these catchphrases. That's all they are, is catchphrases that don't mean anything. But anyway, I digress. Let me continue with the article. As you guys can hear the irritation in my voice, because I hate reading through white supremacist trick bags because it's so offensive to me that they think black people are this stupid. But unfortunately, a lot of us are that stupid because a lot of us will read stuff like this and think that the NFL is actually doing something to help black people, and they're not. So that's why I get irritated, because that's why we're in this position, because we have so many among us who are foolish enough to believe this kind of nonsense. But anyway, similarly, as part of the related music initiative called Songs of the Season, selective artists will create music that will be used in NFL promotions. The songs will debut during an in-game broadcast and will be simultaneously released to all digital streaming platforms worldwide. All proceeds from the songs will go toward Inspire Change. Again, this is just a trick bag game. We're gonna put on a concert. We're gonna pay all the people who's putting on the concert, and then whatever's left over, that's gonna get donated to vague ass programs. That's the plan. So anyway, Carolina Panther safety Eric Reed, who's been real throughout all this. I commend him for the way he stood up throughout all this Jay-Z trick bag game. But anyway, he said, who was the first NFL, well, continue reading the article and back up. Eric Reed, who was the first NFL player to kneel in protest alongside Kaepernick, has been a vocal critic of Roc Nation's partnership with the league. He mocked the new initiative in a Twitter post on Friday. Let's diffuse the uprising of black voices demanding justice with concerts to inspire change that have nothing at all to do with real action, he wrote. It's cool because our token black guy set up the concert. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you, Eric. That's exactly what it is. It's just a trick bag to inspire change, whatever the hell that means. That means we're not going to actually do anything. We're going to quote unquote inspire other people to do something, which means we're going to do nothing. Another nothing burger trick bag. Kaepernick shared on Twitter Friday a highlighted paragraph from Robert L. Allen's book, A Black Awakening in Capitalist America, that discusses the role of capitalism and the oppression of black communities. Reading always gives me clarity, Kaepernick wrote. He then shared the following quote from the book. What they seek is not an end to oppression, but the transfer of the oppressive apparatus into their own hands. Which I'm not really with this whole anti-capitalism stuff that Kaepernick is kind of teetering on with that, but I get this analogy and I agree with the analogy. Jay-Z's not doing anything. He's just trying to seek the profit. He's trying to seek a bag off of what Kaepernick did. So he's basically trying to seek the seek a transfer of the power from the quote unquote oppressors to him, to Jay-Z. And that's what Kaepernick's trying to say. And that's basically what it is. Like I said, I'm not with all that, oh, let's call capitalism the bane of society, because that's a whole nother trick bag. But without diving into why that's a trick bag, I agree with Colin Kaepernick's underlying overall sentiment. So moving on. Artists Meek Mill, Rhapsody, and Megan Trainor have been announced as the first Inspire Change advocates for the 2019 NFL season, Roc Nation stated. So let me stop right there. They're just sticking Meek Mill in there because he's supposedly this figure for social justice because of what he went through with that black female judge who was a Sambo, which I feel for him in that case. But they've basically flipped Meek Mill. He's not very intelligent. He's shown that, and I went in on him with that Nipsey Hussle thing. He's shown that already. He's not very intelligent. So they're going to use him to say, hey, this gives this credibility because Meek Mill is quote unquote from the streets and he's down and he's grassroots because he was in this program with Robert Kraft, who just got let off for that prostitution case. Don't think I haven't noticed that, by the way, but let me not dive off into that. We're going to get him up with Robert Kraft, the white supremacist who's best friends with Donald Trump. And then they're going to dance and have a minstrel show on stage. And we're going to call, and they're working together for some economic and criminal justice reform program. Meek Mill's already doing something like that with the NFL, with Robert Kraft and all these other people. But again, they just keep doing this same vague ass trick bag over and over and over again. They just put different faces. They got Meek Mill one time. They got Malcolm Jenkins the next time. Now they got Jay-Z. They just put a different little Sambo up. I promise you, next year or the year after, they're gonna have another vague ass program, which tells you that the ones before ain't doing nothing. Every time they do the same trick over, it proves to you that the previous trick was a trick because they keep running it back over and over and over again. But that's just white supremacy in a nutshell, which is why I get so frustrated with black people for not being able to see this easier than most of us do. But anyway, continuing with the article. They will perform a free concert in Chicago's Grant Park ahead of the NFL's kickoff game featuring the Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers on September 5th. So again, you're making a lot of money from the game. You're going to attract more people to the game by giving them a free concert to be around the game, more revenue for the game. You can afford to give the concert for free because it's going to make you so much money on the game that's that same day. That's why it's all convenient to put it all together and give it away for free. That way you can run the hustle of saying, see, this is us giving back to the community by giving a free concert while making money off of it anyway, because it's attracting people to your money-making venture that's already going on right after the concert. It's like a free halftime show. Well, no shit, Sherlock, you already paid for the game. This is all, you're just adding an extra halftime show, a pregame show. That's free anyway. That's like them saying, oh, the pregame show is free. Well, no shit. Either I have cable, so I'm already paying for the cable, or I'm at the game with a ticket, so I'm already paying for the game that way. So I already paid for it indirectly because all it's doing is bringing more attention to the main event. It's like an opener for a comedian or anyone else or a lecturer or another musician. Oh, we're gonna bring out such and such artist for free, even though you bought tickets for Lil Wayne because he's an opener. But anyway. Other Twitters used join Reed in criticizing the recent announcement. Peak NFL, this is Jamel Hill, who's also suspect, but she's right here. In this case, she's right. Peak NFL is blackballing someone for speaking up for racial injustice and then turning that shit into a t-shirt. Woo Child, the ghetto. That's her being corny but truthful and accurate. How do we stop racism? This is Chris Williamson. How do we stop racism? And I don't even know who he is, to be honest, but his name is Chris Williamson. How do we stop racism, systematic oppression, and police brutality? Jay-Z and the NFL, let's sell t-shirts and throw concerts. That'll really shake up the system. I agree. Left PhD. This is somebody else on Twitter who I seen some of his tweets before. He's kind of suspect, but anyway, he's also right. Pretty much everyone they're quoting on here is making a good point. Jay-Z and the NFL are partnering to profit off social justice, and he puts it in quotations, clothing. I remember when Kaepernick donated his sneaker collection to homeless folks all over the Bay Area. I remember when he donated suits to former prisoners at Rikers so they had clothes for job interviews. Stephen Ruiz. The NFL is now profiting off what Colin Kaepernick started while simultaneously blackballing him. True. Jamil Smith. The Inspire Change tagline is telling. Jay-Z and the NFL, with all of his power and billions of dollars, don't seem to want to actually create any social change themselves. They just want to take the cause Kaepernick and others kneel to illuminate, ban him, and profit. True. And again, let me put my disclaimer. A lot of these people that I'm reading tweets of are suspect white liberal shills, but in this particular situation, they're speaking truth to power. Then this is looks like a white guy, I believe, but I'm not sure. Michael Sean Duger. I keep reading the NFL and Jay-Z announcement about their plans for initiate change, but I struggle to interpret it as anything other than making a soundtrack and selling clothes to fix social injustice. That can't be right, can it? I want to be wrong because that plan is weird. Again, can't argue there. And that's the article. Now, there's another part to this that I want to address before I wrap up. So, some of you may know, some of you may not know who Michael Eric Dyson is. Michael Eric Dyson is a white liberal shill that's put out by the white media as one of the quote-unquote black leaders or voices for black society, who he's allowed to speak against racism, but he makes sure to take anti-racism only so far, which basically means, long story short, give black people somebody to amen to about racism, but always make sure the end solution is forgiveness, hugs, and kisses. Not punishment of the racists, not reparation for the victims, not any of that. Just hugs, kisses, let the white supremacists go unpunished, and let the black people cry and say how bad racism is, and give them some good white liberals to hug and cry into the shoulders of. That's what he's there for, which is what keeps black people in the position that they're in today, which is why we need reparations. It's because of shills like Michael Eric Dyson who have been used to perpetuate our oppression and injustice by being put in there as a controlled opposition. Reason why I'm bringing up Michael Eric Dyson is because Michael Eric Dyson early last week was put on First Take and Undisputed, big time sports talk shows, sports debate shows that come on in the morning to sell the soap for Jay-Z, to write a trickbag article and then be featured on these shows to defend Jay-Z's coonery, because the white media, the white supremacist media, saw, and the white supremacist sports media in particular, because that's what this was in the sports media because it related to Colin Kaepernick in the NFL. So it was in the sports media even more than it was in the regular media. And because a lot of the black sports fans were going in on Jay-Z, and white media sees it as their job to brainwash black people, that's why they employ all these media chills. And Michael Eric Dyson is one of the chief ones, because they put him out to defend that blackface Virginia governor. They put him out to defend him. They put him out to defend racist liberal Bill Maher as a champion for civil rights. He's a shill. He's a clown. He's a Sambo and a fraud. He's not to be trusted. He's not to be trusted. And I'm going to prove it. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an article that Michael Eric Dyson wrote in the description box. I want you to read it, but I don't want you to be fooled by it. Because he does something that's called argumentum verbosum, which basically means that you argue. It basically means that you're a babbler. It basically means that you say a bunch of flowery words that don't mean anything to make you appear more intelligent than you are. That's basically what it means. That's what argumentum verbosum is. It basically means you say a bunch of crap that you don't even know what the heck it means, but you just babble by it. As a matter of fact, let me read the actual definition if I can get it to upload here. So, when an argument is presented that is too complex, obtuse, or verbose to reasonably deal with. Basically, babble. Argumentum verbosium. Proof by intimidation. So basically, he intimidates people into thinking that he's intelligent by babbling in circles, but he doesn't really have anything to say. That's what it is, basically, long story short. And his article, that's what it is. It's a long string of babble where he tries to compare Jay-Z and Colin Kaepernick to Malcolm X and Martin by basically saying Malcolm called Martin Luther King an Uncle Tom and a coon and a sellout, and Malcolm X ended up realizing that he was wrong for calling Martin that because Martin just wanted justice, which is kind of true. Malcolm did end up apologizing for the way he talked about Martin Luther King, but what they don't realize is that also Martin Luther King will realize the error of his ways, because the very things that Malcolm X was calling Martin Luther King a coon for, Martin Luther King later on realized that he was wrong for doing. He said, "I have integrated my people into a burning house." He said these things. And there are some other quotes that I have. I can't remember them off the top of my head. And even though I don't really rock with the NOI, in this case, I would recommend their website about that documents the ways that he realized that he was wrong towards the end of his life. Like, that's what really got him killed, is that he realized, hey, I went about things the wrong way. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I have to say it because we're speaking on Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, although I respect his sacrifice, I really do respect his sacrifice, Martin Luther King has been used as a weapon against black society. There's a reason why he has a holiday and Malcolm X doesn't. There's a reason why he's propped up the way he is and why everybody loves him, from Republicans to Democrats. No matter who you are, all white people love him. At least they claim to in public. Because of who he was at the beginning of his fight, not who he was at the end. He was used in a lot of ways to harm black people. Another reference I would look at is Dr. Claude Anderson's book, A Black History Reader. He kind of breaks down how Martin Luther King, how a lot of the things he did was detrimental. Martin Luther King is not to be worshipped like that. The man made some mistakes that are still reverberating on black people today. And he realized those mistakes towards the end of his life, and that's what got him killed. That's why when he started talking about a check, reparations, he had to go. Because he was like, yo, I've been wrong. I've been focusing on the wrong things. I should have been focusing on economic integration rather than social integration. And he realized he was used as a shill for white supremacy. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but he realized it. You can look up some of the things he said about white moderates, which was the equivalent of a white liberal back then. Martin Luther King was flawed. So all of this, he's presenting Martin Luther King because Martin Luther King is this infallible figure to a lot of black people. And even though a lot of black people are now kind of coming off that Sambo-ish mentality of denouncing Malcolm X, especially since he kind of went the other way when he towards the end when he died, he became less extreme and more moderate. So of course now it's okay to embrace him. Whereas Martin Luther King went the other way, he became more radical and less moderate. He went the opposite way of Malcolm towards the end of his life. Even though they prop him up, it's still kind of halfway taboo. He's still kind of a little bit taboo because of who Malcolm was early on, and he was portrayed as the black racist, even though it's kind of not possible to be a racist as a black person. He was, since he has that lingering taboo on him. Well, Malcolm was wrong, because that's what Michael Eric Dyson's Shill article does. Malcolm was wrong. Malcolm was wrong about Martin because Martin was on the inside, and that's how it's always worked. There's been people on the outside and people on the inside, which it's never been, because the people on the inside have never helped us. You can't name one. Not Barack Obama, not Thurgood Marshall, who was a CIA, FBI informant. None of them. Condoleezza Rice. Hey, I just broke down Martin Luther King a little bit. You have to do a little bit more research to see what I'm really talking about. But I just broke down Martin Luther King a little bit. Martin Luther King, none of these quote-unquote inside figures have ever done anything. So this is more of Michael Eric Dyson just being a shill. But I'm putting him in this little video too towards the end because I want to point him out too, because he's been put out there writing articles. I'm going to put his article as a link in the description box. But if you read through it, don't be fooled by it, because it's just a game. Because all he's talking is the same. He's going to get on the inside. This is an inside job. It's a chess move. Speaking of those chess moves, so the chess move is a concert. What happened to that ownership plan that he was going to have, where he was going to have 0.5% of an NFL team like he did with the NBA? Because he still ain't got, Jay-Z still ain't shit compared to some of the money that white men got out here. Jay-Z is a broke chump compared to some of these white men out here. That's why he got to buy 0.5% or 0.10% of 1% of a damn team. And I'm not exaggerating. That's how much he owned of the damn NBA team, and that's how much he was going to allegedly own of an NFL team. But that was just a white supremacist lie put out there to further pacify foolish black people. But anyway, I digress. I know this has been another long video. Thank you guys who have been able to listen through it. This is just me going off about this Jay-Z situation because it's just a big hoax. It's just a big fraud. Don't fall for it, family. It's just a big game. Don't fall for these sports Sambos and these media Sambos being put out there to defend it. And a lot of these regular Sambos, these idiots who are fooled by all of this trick bag language, don't be fooled by them. Understand it's a game, it's a trick, it's a hustle. Understand that these people put out here to defend it are a hustle, or hustling. As a matter of fact, I want to close the video out with something. Speaking on, what's his name? Michael Eric Dyson, the Sambo. I want y'all to hear what Michael Eric Dyson is defending and what he's equating to Martin Luther King as quote-unquote fighting for us. I want y'all to hear a quick clip from the idiot Jay-Z. So here we go.
Of growing up in a single-parent house, which I grew up in, which me grew up in, and having an adverse feeling for authority, right? Your father's gone, so you like, I hate my dad. Well, nobody tell me what to do. I'm the man of the house. And then you hit the street and you run into a police officer, and his first thing is, put your hands up, freeze, shut up. And you like, excuse my language, everybody. You like, fuck you, right? So that interaction causes people to lose lives.
So that's what Michael Eric Dyson, the civil rights leader who writes shill, fake, pathetic books like Tears We Cannot Stop, crybaby books to white people that white people ain't reading, or that they are reading, and then they say, oh, those poor black people, and then they close the book and go right back to living their lives doing nothing about white supremacy. That's the kind of books that Michael Eric Dyson writes. So he's the big civil rights leader because he writes them kind of books that's supposedly supposed to be ending racism because it makes white liberals cry and do nothing. That's what he's defending when he writes this article. So keep that in mind if you do read his little article and you are thinking about being fooled by what he's saying. That's what he's defending in that article. Jay-Z getting on TV and saying police brutality happens because black kids grow up without their fathers. Therefore, they have no respect for authority, so they go out in the street and they randomly run into police. Which we know that they don't randomly run into the police. The connotation is that they go out and commit crimes because we're playing on white supremacist stereotypes. So black children run out and go out and commit crimes, and then they're randomly saying to police after they committed a crime, fuck you, which is justifying the police brutality. So everything Colin Kaepernick knelt for was unjustified because Jay-Z just took the white supremacist side. Unless you're actually... Let me talk to the coons who might be listening to this video, the coons and the white supremacists, if you could possibly make it this far, which I know you didn't. But let's just pretend for a moment you made it this far into the video. Let's pretend that what Jay-Z said is legitimate. Either you're defending Jay-Z saying that black children, because they have no fathers, are randomly running out into the street and randomly running into police, screaming at the police, fuck you. And then the police randomly deciding to shoot them with no crime being committed. Either that's what you're defending, or you're defending that black kids who have no parents are running out into the street, committing crimes, running into the police, and then are resisting arrest and saying fuck you and becoming off as hostile and aggressive, which leaves the police no choice but to kill them. Right? So then that means that everything Colin Kaepernick protested was for nothing. But Jay-Z and Michael Eric Dyson are on Colin Kaepernick's side. So even if you're a coon and white supremacist and you're against what Colin Kaepernick did, you're against it. Michael Eric Dyson and Jay-Z claim to be for it, what Colin Kaepernick did. But this is what Jay-Z is claiming his belief is. And this is what Michael Eric Dyson, the shill slave, defends. But anyway, so when you read that article, keep in mind, that's what Michael Eric Dyson is defending. And then you tell yourself, who is he working for? Whose interests do he serve? Anyway, that's another video. Like, share, subscribe. Peace.